Hello, Chiefs Kingdom, and welcome to the latest Arrowheads of our podcast. As we've teased the last few weeks, this is going to be our third annual Draftaganza, our live mock draft. You'll see plenty of mock drafts out there. We're not reinventing the wheel in that regard, but we think we're the only people that genuinely show you the workings. So what we're going to do is run one of the online simulators live, talk you through what's going on, make our picks and trades from there. So more of a draft night experience, if you like. So to take us through that, we've got our GM who still in his job.
Sure have.
Well, even though we've not technically won a game in the last 2 years, but we've not lost one either. So
this is true.
Neil, how you doing, mate?
Good, thanks, man. How are you?
Yeah, can't complain. And we've also got Tobble as well.
Hello.
In the war bedroom.
Yeah, giggity.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. So before we kicked off, we thought it might just be worthwhile to kind of chat through some strategies, kind of aims, just kind of what we're going to do rather than just hitting the button and going random. So firstly, we're going to do the full shebang. We're going 7 rounds.
Yeah.
Lovely. Get comfy, everybody.
I don't expect to be picking in the 7th. I expect to have traded those away by then.
Cool. Spoiler alert. Cool. So I have predicted this. I've got 2 beers sitting on the table here with me, just in case. Predicting a long night. And I guess, like I say, just trying to set out some aims. I thought it would be worth us just working out what we're trying to do. Are we trying to have the draft that we think Brett Veach will have, or are we trying to do the draft we think Brett Veach should have, or are we going to try to draft the players that we like?
Yes.
Draft the players we like.
But I would like to think that the players we like are also the players the Chiefs will like, because I think we have a reasonable handle on the kind of players that they will be looking at. So, and certainly the positions. I don't think it's any secret what the positions of need are. So I don't think we'll be a million miles away. Like, how we prioritize things might differ from Brett Veach, but I don't think we'll be a million miles off the general idea of it.
And so we're going to do this as the normal audio podcast, as well as hopefully stick it out onto YouTube, even though my camera is not working, which is probably a blessing in disguise a blessing in no disguise. I don't know. I'm fully masked, even though masks are no longer required here. But my long way around to the point is, on the screen, Neil's got our big board. So I guess talk us about Neil. I mean, it's not meant to be a ranking of all 700 or whatever hell players are into the draft, right? These are the guys that through various mocks and whatever, are, it's not unrealistic that we could either trade up to get them. These are the types of guys we might look at. These are the guys that have fallen in some scenarios, that sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And the colours?
So the colours are kind of where in each round you think they would probably go. So like if there's a pinky reddy colour, they'll probably go in the top third of the round. If there's a blue colour, middle third of the round, and the greeny colour, bottom third of the round. Just to kind of give us an idea if someone drops out of the range where you would think that they should go, then maybe you might want to look at trading up for somebody. Say, I don't know, say Trayvon Walker, for example, drops out of the top 10 and he hasn't been picked at 14. You go, well, actually, you might fancy an edge rusher that was originally kind of top 5. So you might want to look at what it would take to trade up for him if you wanted him.
So just for the guys who are not deviants and who are just listening in the podcast ears, you mentioned edge players there, right? Let's just mention the top 5 or 10 edge players you've got on our board and kind of where you see them going, just to give folk a flavour of kind of what we've got.
So edge rushers, Trayvon Walker, somewhere in the top 10. Jermaine Johnson, we have him in the 11 to 20 range, but it'll be closer to 11 than it will to 20. If he gets past 13, I'd be surprised. Kalafdis and Ajabo, back end of the first round. Ajabo probably, because of the injury, will probably be there when we pick at 29 and 30. Kalafdis, probably not. And then in the second round, we've got Boye Mafe, top end of the second round. Cameron Thomas and Arnold Ebiketie, kind of in the middle of the second, and Josh Pascal and Logan Hall, back end of the second. Kind of that's the high ranking edge. If you want to look at edge, there's 9 of them on our list there.
Cool. And we've done the same across sort of all different positions. I'm looking at
pretty much. Yeah, I don't think there's a position. I didn't do quarterback for obvious reasons.
And punter.
I didn't do, although we have talked about punter in the WhatsApp group, but I don't think the hair's there for.
No, I would listen. I would draft a kicker before I draft a punter. I love Tommy Townsend. Cool. So I mean, let's talk approach and what we want to do. I think we were just chatting before we hit record about sort of how aggressive we want to be or where we want to sort of trade up or not. And I think that in general we settled on the idea that we would trade up in the first, particularly if a specific name yet to be decided fell. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
I quite like this because we've got the kind of color code, which if you're watching visually you can see. It's going to be quite easy to track those guys that fall out of their tiers, and that should make it easier for us to become on high alert. And like Jameson Williams, you expect top 10. If he gets into the range where we can trade up for, that's a conversation we can have. And you know, we've got 3 wide receivers there in the 11 to 21 range. Now, if one of them gets to 21, that's where I'd start to become interested in trading up. So it's really good because I feel like this is probably something the Chiefs, from what we know about their draft kind of style, the sort of thing they do is they have their pockets and they try and hit people in their pockets. And if someone falls outside, then this year more than ever, we've done this this is the 3rd year we've done this. This is the first time really that realistically we've been able to trade up. So this has given us so much ammo to move, like the Chiefs will on draft night. So
yeah, I mean, I think that's as good a time as any to have that conversation then. So what are we looking for, particularly with round 1? We've got 2 picks, 29 and 30 in the first round. At the end of day 1, what are we looking to come out with?
Well, I would like a wide receiver, but I'm not completely wedded to that idea. Like I would like Chris Olave, probably somewhere in the 15 to 20 range, is probably where he's likely to go on this. Failing that, then you look at, I think Pickens would be my second choice, who's probably somewhere in the region of 50, probably. I think there's enough depth in the edge that we don't necessarily have to go edge first, mainly because the better edge players will be gone long before we're going to pick. And realistically, the trading up to get into kind of the 10, 11, 12 range, the price is just too much for me.
So Tommy, you touch on some of the guys that you would be interested in being aggressive for at any position.
So for me, I'm pretty much of the opinion I don't really want us to trade any higher than 21 in general. Just because I think it's dear. I think for what it's going to cost and for how many holes we've got on the roster, I'd probably trade up to 21 for a wide receiver, one of the last elite guys. So say Jameson Williams, I just don't think we're going to have a shot at. Garrett Wilson, I just don't think we're going to have a shot at. Drake London, Olave, they're the two that I would be interested in us going up and getting if they're around the 20 mark. And then with the edges, Jermaine Johnson. I mean, how desperately do you need that guy? Like we do, but would you be happy to kind of take a risk and take a Jarbo? Because pretty much every one of these I've done, a Jarbo has been available 29 and 30. So for me personally, I'd be looking at a little trade up to get the last wide receiver between London and Olave, and then I'd be looking at trying to take a Jarbo at 30. That would be my strategy.
I know from our group chats, Chris is a big proponent of defensive tackle in the first round because drop off in talents is quite significant after the first kind of 4 or 5 of them. And I was messaging with Charles Robinson this evening, and defensive tackle and wide receiver were the 2 areas of real first round need that we would have. So like there's Devonte Wyatt, who probably will go in the 15 to 20 range as well. I think Jordan Davis will probably go a little bit too early for us. But if you could come out, if Devonte Wyatt's still there at 20, I'd be interested. I'll put it that way.
And so you talk about drop off. What's the difference between Wyatt and Perry Winfrey or DeMarvin Leal then?
Wyatt's just that next level up, I think. I like Winfrey and Leal are good. Wyatt is very good. I mean, it wouldn't be the end of the world if you didn't get him, because there is Winfrey and Leal and there's Travis Jones in the second as well. So it's not a make or break if we don't get him. Like the draft is doomed. But for me, Devonte Wyatt would be a nice piece to add. If the option presents.
Why? Can I just ask why do we think there is such a big need to go for defensive tackle? I understand the drop off, but why defensive tackle as a position in general?
Chris Jones
is it just because? Is it just is it just that we're looking to the future in terms of getting ahead of it a year, or?
I think so.
Because we've got just because we've got immediate issues that we need to sort this year. I mean, I think Jaron Reed, he was a snap eater, wasn't he? He's 900 snaps, something stupid. So I understand that he's gone, but we obviously Nardi's coming back. For me, I'm pretty out on defensive tackle, if I'm honest, just because I think it's going to be dear to get one of those 2 guys. But we'll see how.
The thing is, bigger picture, defensive tackle is a little bit. It's a lot like wide receiver, right? We've got 2 guys, I think, on the last year of their deals.
Yeah.
So, we're going to be having the same conversation next year. So I think I'm of the opinion, I think I said last time we recorded, that it's perhaps not just in a chase, but if the right guy fell to you, you take him, would be my thoughts. And maybe the last first round conversation to have is on cornerback, right? So that's the other big position that we're kind of big roster hole we need. Is there a guy that we would trade up for in the first, or
no? Because there's so many. I think second round is a good place to pick up McCreary, Gordon, Woolen, Cam Taylor-Britt. Third round, Marcus Jones, Josh Williams, Martin Emerson, Zion McCullum. Like there's 8 players there. You would fancy your chances of picking up 1 or 2 of those if you wanted cornerback depth. I mean, if we have Sauce Gardner, Andrew Booth, and Trent McDuffie on our list. If one of them was still there at 29, yeah, maybe. But it would go against what Brett Veach has done in the past. And I do think there's second and third rounder where there's real value at cornerback. So
I think I'm out on a first round cornerback as well, just unless some miracle happens and one of these guys falls. And then I think that if that happens, so let's just take Sauce Gardner as an example. If he, for whatever reason, falls into the mid-teens, there's going to be lots of teams. Yes, but there's also lots of teams going after him as well. And I don't know if we've got the bullets. Well, we've got the bullets to do it. I just don't know if we would do that.
I couldn't see Brett Veach doing it. I'll put it that way.
No. The last first round corner we took was Marcus Peters, right? Great player.
Yeah.
But what is he doing now? I just is he really the lot? Like, is it worth it? Would be my thing in the first round corner.
I think with the success that Veach has had picking the later round cornerbacks, I mean, you look at our cornerback room at the moment, or even what it was last season. There's a couple of reclaimed ex-first rounders who are on their second or third chances, and a bunch of scrubs basically. Snead's a pick of the bunch, and he was a fourth rounder. So I don't think Brett Veach needs to pick a cornerback in the first. I think he can get enough kind of second, third, even fourth round that he can make do. I think he's more about the pass rush than the pass coverage.
Yeah.
I think positional value as well. Wide receiver and edge for two needs, and you got two picks. If we can fill them, then we can fill out the rest of the roster with these second, third, fourth round picks. But I think if we can get the sexy picks early, so to speak, that would be my preference. But
yeah.
I'm with you guys. I'm not particularly bothered about a cornerback crazy early. So, and Brett Veach actually said, didn't he? He aggressively wanted to sort the defensive line, and he's done
squat.
Nothing about
Taylor
it.
So there's and so that I guess one last question for me before we decide on some names and kind of our first round parameters. To what extent does the free agency market influence how aggressive you are? I'm thinking that at the moment, I think I really love some names in the last time we chatted. I think that there's still a number of serviceable pass rushers available if you don't get the guy you want. I'm not so sure that holds true for too many other positions. So so say for instance we're what Johnson or Kalafdis, right? Those are guys, because Ajabo is he's obviously redshirting this year. To what extent do you say, right, we're not going to go to 20 to get them because we could get Clowney? I've just thrown a name out there, right? That's not a Clowney comment. It's just he's an available comment. To what extent do you do that, or do we not think of that at the moment? Are we just draft focused just now, get the guys that we want, and deal with the rest later?
I think you do keep free agency in the back of your mind there. I would like to think the Chiefs have had that conversation with Clowney's representatives just to kind of case out what he might be looking for if they think he's a fit. You could get a year out of Clowney while you rehab someone from injury. If you wanted to go a Jabo. But I would prefer to get starters in the first round, or in an ideal world, you'd want starters from the first and second round in a perfect world.
Cool.
I think.
Right. So let's. I've got my pen out. Right. Let's decide on some names. Who and where we'll trade to. First off, yes, I think we're pretty much set that we want 2 first round picks. Am I getting that vibe?
I wouldn't be against trading it out with one of them, because the Jets pick at 35. So you're only going 3 picks outside the first round, and you can probably get a fourth rounder out of them. And then that gives you ammunition to move up quite aggressively from 93 and 104 in the third round. You can kind of get up into the mid 70s then. So
okay.
I'm not totally wedded to the idea of picking both first rounders. I don't mind sliding one of them back into the second.
I wouldn't go back very far though. I'd personally want to keep the 2 first round picks.
To me, there's a lot of value in the middle of the second round, kind of 45 to 55. If you could give me, you could pick up 3 very good players.
And if we're trading up, where can we get to if we trade up? So what does our 2 firsts get us?
Your 2 firsts would get you to the Jets at 10, or thereabouts.
10. That's high. I mean, is that realistic?
I don't see it as being a good use of 2 first-round picks myself.
And then
not for an unproven player. I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't want to go too high.
So and then what if we throw 1 and 50, or sorry, 39 and 29 and 50?
You'd be looking at somewhere around 13 to 15.
And then what does it take to get to 20?
2 2s or a first and a third.
I like that a lot. I like that range a lot. The first and the comp
20.
pick gets us in a really, really good position there.
Yeah, because your comp pick is almost it's a
freebie.
It's a bonus, right?
Yeah.
Cool. So
it's the teams you jump in there as well. The teams you jump in between, say, 23 to us are teams that have very similar needs.
Yeah, the Packers.
So I'd like to jump there.
Cool. So we're kind
the
of
other
looking
thing
at
to
that.
remember there as well is that we have next year we have a compensatory third for Ryan Poles, and we have Miami's 4th, and we have Miami's 6th, and at the moment we have a 7th as well. So, there's a bit of next year ammunition that you could use if you were really wanting to trade up, but not lose too much this year. You could package together next year's 3rd and 4th comp pick, or third round comp pick, and Miami's 4th, along with one of the firsts, and that would probably get you into the late teens if you wanted to be in there.
Cool. Okay, so I guess we're realistically looking at somewhere as our kind of punchiest effort, somewhere between 15, 16, and 20, and then past that we can go if we want.
Yeah. Well,
so
one thing Charles said earlier was that your trade candidates are the Patriots at 21 could really be looking to move down.
Yeah,
so
they hate the first round pick.
That is an area where that puts us one ahead of Green Bay. So again, they have similar needs to us. So if you can get in ahead of Green Bay, fantastic.
Listen, as an aside, which has got nothing to do with what we're trying to do here, if we can take the receiver that Aaron Rodgers wants, that would make me happy.
Yes.
Cool. So I mean that gives us some to work with, and then I guess we need to decide on the names. I think what we'd said was that if there was specific names kind of falling into that range, we'd think about doing something. So I mean I guess I said my preference would be probably for one of the pass rushers, but
I don't
you guys
think
are both
one of
going
them
receiver.
Going to be there. Like, I mean, Kalafdis, if you wanted to get in ahead of Green Bay, but he's probably my least favorite first round pass rusher. Chris Olave for me, if you can get him at 21, that would do very nicely.
I don't think Garrett Wilson's going to be there at all. I think we're missing Burks off this list. But
I'm not a
London.
Fan. I wasn't a fan of Burks.
I quite like Burks. I don't like Dotson in the first. I'd like Pickens, but that's going to be quite early. So for me, it'd be London, Olave, or Burks. But if the GM's off Burks, then that's not going to happen. Yeah. so London or Olave.
Okay, so that's fine. So we've got Karlaftis as a third option, and Olave and London as our first two options. I mean, I'm with you, Tom. I like Pickens. I think as a receiver.
I'd take Pickens with like 29 or 30.
And I think we were just talking. I guess last question before we pull the trigger and get to the real action. We spoke a lot about value and kind of what do we really think about value and how wedded to the sort of notion of value are we? I'd said before that like if we've got 39 and we've got pick 50 in the second and then pick 29 and 30 in the first, and I think I'm a little bit like if we like a guy at 50, then we should still like him at 29 and 30. Because if that's our guy, if he fits what it is that we want, then 10 or 12 or 15, whatever it is, draft places doesn't really make that much of a difference. Not when they're actually on the field playing, right?
So for me, with Pickens, like you just mentioned Pickens, if the wide receivers that we like have gone, and we're sitting at 29 and 30, and Pickens is there, and we like Pickens, I'd take him. if he's the guy, take him. I wouldn't wait and go, oh, but he's better value here. For me, when that's such a need for like a wide receiver, if there's a guy we like, I think we should take him at 30 and not
To
risk
me,
it.
I would try and trade back 5-10 places and pick up a fourth or a fifth, and then you'll still get Pickens, and you've got a fourth or a fifth, which you can then use to move around a bit in the kind of third roundy kind of area, and go up and get the guys you really like in the third round as well.
I'm not against that. I just wouldn't leave like a 20 space, like a 20 picks.
Yeah, from 30 to
us,
50
you
is
know
a
what I mean?
big gap.
Yeah.
Just is it worth it to go 5 places, get another 4th rounder, which we've got a lot of picks anyway, to risk missing the guy?
For me, I wouldn't, but Neil's the GM. You're the decider, Neil.
Because I've done this mock draft site enough times, I'd be pretty confident Pickens is there at 50. Like 9 times out of 10, he's there at 50. But I'd be happy to move back a bit. You know, he's not the only receiver out there as well. Like.
Right. Well, that's been a long preamble. I think we're not tech guys. I don't know if that's come across in the last few weeks, right? Listen, I work with spreadsheets. Neil's an optician and Tom sells jewellery. So
I am a television producer, though, which is
That
slightly
sells
worrying. So, yeah,
I was giving you a
yeah,
pass on that one.
yeah.
So we're not
I
the
feel
tech
like
guys.
I can't. Yeah.
So what
I should
we're
probably
going
be
to
better
do
than I am.
is we're going to save all this down. We're going to restart the Zoom, and we'll start again with some actual draft action. So bear with us. We'll be back after this short break, in which I promise, unlike other podcasts, we will neither try to sell you Viagra or cereal.
Ooh, burn!